I think it's important for the client to understand that you know what your legal status with your representative is. I mean, if they aren't registered in your jurisdiction, if they're not qualified to service you, but they're doing it with certain restrictions or things you can or can't do, I think you owe it to yourself to think of the ramifications. For example, if you know, if you have an RSP and it's with the advisor you had before you left Canada, but something happens to you when you're in your new residence and you are and your wife becomes the owner and you get a rollover to your wife's RSP or RIF or whatever the case may be. That firm that was there has no pre-existing relationship with the wife. Does that qualify? You know, so there's complications that can arise. Everything's fine until it's not, right? And then when some incident happens, of course, it's always unexpected. Then the issues.
Well, let's get it straight.
Then we get some issues.
If a guy leaves Vancouver with $100,000 in his RSP at the Bank of Montreal, they have removed restrictions that used to be there where you couldn't deal with it at all.
Right.
The Bank of Montreal can still deal and still hold your RSP in Canada, and you can be down there. What they can't do is they can't expand the thing. They can't sell you a new one. If you roll it over to your wife, they can't deal with your wife because she doesn't have a pre-existing thing. You can't take that and take it from the Bank of Montreal to the Royal Bank of Canada because they don't have that pre-existing thing with you on that
Pre-existing relationship.
Pre-existing relationship. Yeah. And you can't buy and sell within the thing. You can cash it in. You can sell stock if that's what you got in mutual funds. You can go to cash and stay in cash, but you can't buy back more. Whereas if you deal with somebody like Dan, or I use Darrell Thompson in Toronto all the time. If you deal with somebody like Darrell or Darrell Thompson with Blackmont Securities or Dan Walkow, who's here in Vancouver with C-Bank Capital, you have got somebody that can deal with you, sell within the fund, buy and sell, give you recommendations, talk to you on the phone, the cell phone, talk to you if you're on your boat in Chesapeake Bay. Was that about putting the side, right side? Well, because he's gone to the effort to license his company with the Securities and Exchange Commission in the States, and then some states that are heavily used, where he's got lots of them. What states are you like? California, I presume.
Well, we're licensed in a variety of states, in California, Texas, Oregon, Washington, Arizona.
If there's enough people there, you'll put a license in.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of person that you have to deal with if you're cross-border. Because if they don't at that, then you're dead in the water.
Well, I think it's half of the solution. The thing we try to do at C-Bank Capital is like I was saying earlier. See, if you have an RSP in Canada and you've got an IRA in the U.S. or an investment program in the U.S.,
you manage the whole account. Both countries.
We want to manage both sides of it. I mean, obviously, so if you deal with a Canadian person, say a person who's holding your RSP, that's all he can do.
So.
That's all he can do. They can't offer the U.S. side of the business.
Can't talk about the U.S. stuff? Can't do it?
So when you're developing a financial plan or so forth, you're incorporating the RSP within all your other holdings to get some kind of consistent
And because you're a financial operation, if I am your client in Vancouver, and I move to San Francisco, San Diego, Sarasota, or Salt Lake City, your organization, because you got my money and you got all this stuff, can actually work at getting me a new credit card and so on down the States.
Well, that's the part of the whole thing is that if you're immigrating, not only can we pre-stage your investments in Canada, for example, and make sure they're properly positioned from a tax point of view before you go across the line. Then when you decide, and if you have us in the loop when you're going to make your move and so forth, we're there to set you up on the U.S. side, efficiently move money from Canada to the United States into your accounts down there, establish a bank account and an investment account for you instantly. We deal both in the U.S. and Canadian dollars, so we can facilitate the account with U.S. dollars at any time.
You can have an American who wants to have a Canadian dollar account.
Sure. Coming back the other way, if Americans come, I mean, even well, we're getting off the topic a little bit, so we work on the immigration side in facilitating people who want to move back and forth. But never mind, if you're an American, and for example, who has a Canadian affinity for whatever reason, perhaps you think the American dollar is going to decline substantially over the next couple of years because of all the money that's being printed to finance this recovery, and we're going to have ensuing inflation and, of course, going to kill the U.S. dollar. you as an American can open up an account with us here in Canada, and we can open up an account in Canadian dollars for you and manage it in Canadian dollars. So if you have $1 million in your investment program and you say, you know, I'd like to have it spread around the world, I'd like to have 500,000 in Canada, maybe one of your children lives in Canada and is ultimately going to be a beneficiary in Canada, or maybe you married and you moved to the United States, and you as a husband are the Canadian and your wife's the American, or vice versa, but your son or daughter moves back to Canada and gets married, and ultimately you're doing an estate plan and you want to have assets held in Canada. Whether you're worried about the currency, whether you have state concerns, we can manage a Canadian dollar account for an American resident of the United States and do the proper tax reporting for you.
Do you have any clients in, say, Saudi Arabia?
No.
No. Is there any reason why you couldn't do somebody in Saudi Arabia?
No. Basically, we face the same issue. Actually, you and I talked about this some years ago, was that the market is so large in the United States for our business. I mean, we feel that there's a substantial amount of cross-border work to be done, and our challenge is, of course, to get our message out that we can actually do it and do it right. That we've not looked to go international because our plate's fairly full here at home. However, having said that, it depends on the jurisdiction, David, because as we have to be registered in the United States, we would have to be registered in Saudi or Dubai or Australia, or and of course with the markets of the last year or two being as devastating as they have, security commissions and governments have been coming down on cross-border hedge funds and cross-border investment managers and all this kind of stuff. So it's crucial that we would, before we'd even attempted it, that we would make absolutely sure that we were on solid ground being registered in the jurisdiction we were going to operate in. Having said that, I mean, we can custodialize anywhere. We had, in fact, a couple of years ago, looked at custodializing international accounts in was Liechtenstein. It was a custodial bank like the ones we use here in North America, well-known one and so forth, and they approached us to act as a custodian, and a very good organization. I was very impressed with the services they offered for expats and this type of stuff. But again, we're in the advisory side. We're the investment advisors. So we could use any custodian in the world, but we have, because we're providing the advice, we have to be registered in the jurisdiction we're delivering service. So
you can't just set up an account for somebody in Saudi Arabia or Dubai or Kuwait or any of these other places unless you are properly registered.
Right. So we wouldn't do it, and unless there was substantial enough business to justify not only the fees that are required to register and be properly vetted in that jurisdiction, the ongoing compliance reporting requirements, the rules in the jurisdiction that may differ from the jurisdictions we currently operate in, and all the operational oversight that we'd have to apply. Well, so this is not simple.
I understand that, because if you type income tax and immigration expert into Google, I come up #1 in the world. I haven't done immigration for 8 years now.
Right.
6 years, I guess. It was 2002, June 22nd, 2002. Canada changed its law to say that if you wanted to be an immigration consultant, you had to belong to the Canadian Society of Immigration Consultants. And I was going through a bankruptcy and a divorce at the time, and I was grandfathered into the new society, and I didn't have to, but UBC started offering an immigration law course, and I decided, well, I've been so tied up for 2 years, I haven't paid any attention to the new laws, etc. So I went and took the blasted immigration law course at UBC, passed, and was one of the valedictorian, if I can say so.
Beautiful.
And then I canceled my membership in CSIC because I looked at it and I said, holy Christopher, it's going to cost me $10,000 a year to be a member. It's not what I'm really into.
Well, I think that's why a lot of
thousands of other people that are doing it, and what I do with the cross-border income tax is really rare. I got 46 years of experience in it, and I can name 12 other people, maybe in North America, that I think are. I think I can name 12 other people that I think are as good as I am. I can name you 50 people right now in Vancouver that can go out and, I'm talking about North America 12 and 50 people in Vancouver that are good immigration consultants.
Yeah.